which it was reported that you shot a man in the face.
In New Mexico, on March 25, 2018, Crystal Cardenas, consumed by a relationship altercation, stained her hands with the blood of her boyfriend and his current girlfriend. Every crime has motives, but some criminals may genuinely not understand why they committed such heinous acts, or they may fake ignorance.
Or desire whatsoever to kill Mario Cabral.
No, I didn't.
How about Vanessa?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I was just shocked. I was shocked. I didn't believe it.
How was your mood?
Excuse me?
How was your mood about learning that information?
I started crying.
Even as the criminal pleads their weakness, the bereaved family's cry for justice leaves no room for mercy.
She had told me that if I wasn't able to finish the job, or for some reason it wasn't able to get done when it was going to get done, that Luis was going to take care of it.
Where's the DNA? If she held that gun, where's her DNA at? If she loaded into the clip, the evidence will show you there's nothing comes back on Crystal.
Crystal Cardenas, 34, will spend 54 years behind bars. Jesse Kerchevsky was sentenced to life in prison for first-degree intentional homicide in connection with the 2018 death of Lynn Hernan. Prosecutors say the two women were friends, but Kerchevsky poisoned 62-year-old Hernan over time and stole nearly $300,000 from her. At her sentencing, Kerchevsky shared a letter she claimed the victim wrote, admitting to poisoning herself.
Using this on my own terms and how I see fit. No one played any part in this decision or acted in it. I have chose to drink Visine to end my life.
The judge was not convinced.
There's no way Lynn Hernan wrote those green. Lynn Hernan.
Hernan's family and friends were in court to give their impact statements.
It's pure evil.
She was more than just a statistic, more than just a name in a news headline. She was a beloved friend, a cherished family member, a bright light extinguished far too soon.
Kerchevsky will be eligible for parole after 30 years. Her attorney has reportedly said he plans to appeal the sentence. This monster is hearing the words of the little girl he abducted. In a hushed courtroom, the prosecutor reads a heart-wrenching statement written by the young victim.
Because of you, I can't sleep at night. Why did you do what you did? Did something happen to make you do this? It bothers me that you took advantage of me being nice.
The little girl was riding her bike in an upstate New York campground last September when she decided to take one more loop. That's when she went missing. The search at Morrow State Park, outside Albany, gained national attention after the kidnapper delivered a ransom note to the family's mailbox, demanding $50,000. Fingerprints on the note led authorities to 47-year-old Craig Ross Jr. She was found in his camper, imprisoned inside a cabinet. Her simple yet powerful words were directed at her kidnapper during his sentencing.
You were haunting my thoughts, but now I will be haunting yours. Eventually, I might forget you, but you won't forget me.
Karen Hagan is the district attorney.
He sat there with not any kind of emotion or response, which was disheartening.
The girl's aunt was in court when the statement was read.
What was it like in court to hear the words from your niece?
You know, for a 9-year-old to be so articulate and eloquent with her words, and you could tell that it was a child that wrote it, but it was so thoughtful.
Her mother tearfully read a statement as well.
Don't understand why people like you do the things you do.
A judge had some harsh words and issued jail time for a former sheriff who was accused of breaking the law.
Not above the law.
Former Clark County, Indiana Sheriff Jamie Knoll is awaiting trial on 25 felony charges related to tax fraud and misappropriation of funds for personal use. He has pleaded not guilty to the charges. As part of the case, Knoll was ordered to surrender all his weapons except for one shotgun. However, the judge stated that additional firearms were found in his home. As a result, he was called before the judge and found in contempt of court.
It's an appropriate sanction. You know what I think the answer is? 60 days in. That's what I think the answer is today.
The judge ordered 60 days in jail, referencing the series in which Noel was heavily featured.
I didn't think it was cute.
Noel's defense attorney argued that Noel made an honest mistake while directing 2 other people to round up all the guns in his home. However, the judge did not find the former sheriff's actions amusing.
I told Mr. Knoll, don't do anything stupid. Do not try to deceive me, defy me. You will not like the consequences.
He was handcuffed and taken into custody today. On November 22, 2016, Titus Nafis Lee's fiery rage unleashed a spree of kidnapping, robbery, and assault in Philadelphia. We have to wonder what shadows haunt a young mind to produce such horrors. In court, sins are not forgiven. One must compensate for their actions.
The defendant being in prison for a minimum of 240 months, maximum 348 months in the custody of the North Carolina Division of Adult Corrections and Youth Justice.
I would like you to know that Nancy and Nancy is responsible for my life being significantly harder than it was ever supposed to be. My innocence is now gone. I found myself harboring feelings of uncertainty and fear just by doing small things like going to the store or meeting a friend for dinner. Things that are supposed to be easier now are hard because I'm constantly like him to be mine.
Titus Lee was sentenced to 26 to 182 years in prison. Anthony Tolson, a young father and popular musician, was murdered in Detroit on Christmas Eve. Police quickly apprehended the suspects, who were later brought to court for a preliminary hearing. However, the judge swiftly removed them due to their disturbing behavior.
Members of the media observed while filming Mr. Young was talking and appeared to be making statements to the witness that I was not able to make out the words that Mr. Young was saying. However, it appeared that they were not pleasant words, and his facial expressions were angry, and it appeared to me to be very menacing.
This is 18-year-old Darnell Young and 33-year-old Charles Cox, both in jail jumpsuits, listening to witness testimony during their preliminary hearing. Police say the two carjacked and killed musician Anthony Tolson on Christmas Eve outside a party store in Detroit. Tolson had just left Central Baptist Church, where he played bass in a holiday service, and was on his way home to open gifts with his kids, but never made it there. Shortly after, the judge ordered both Young and Cox to be escorted out of the courtroom. As they left, Young could be heard cursing. The judge noted that while Young's words were unclear, they seemed menacing. Both men faced several charges, including murder, carjacking, and armed robbery. If convicted, they could spend the rest of their lives in prison. After a robbery and a murder, you might think Deshaun Boylan and Robert Lee G would accept their sentences gracefully. You'd be wrong. Deshaun and Robert were charged with carjacking and first-degree felony murder. Around 1 a.m. on June 26, 2014, Jacob Rameau and his brother Christopher Hotz were leaving a pub in Muskegon, Michigan. When Christopher watched in shock as someone drove off in his 1991 Dodge, Jacob immediately hopped on his Harley and chased after the car. He soon closed in on the vehicle, unaware that the car thief was not working alone until shots rang out from the car behind him. A Muskegon Heights officer later found Jacob's body in a front yard with his motorcycle lying nearby. A week later, the four culprits were behind bars: Robert Lee G, Deshaun Boylan, and two of their friends. While Robert and Deshaun stayed silent, their friends talked. They identified Robert as the trigger man and Deshaun as the carjacker. Robert's case went to trial first. The judge had barely read the guilty verdict when his sister let out a blood-curdling scream. Her screeches echoed down the hall as an officer dragged her out of the courtroom. The judge continued reading the sentencing, but paused minutes later because Robert had passed out, and deputies had to carry him out. week later, the judge handed Robert a sentence of life imprisonment. Surprisingly, an upbeat Robert appeared unbothered, even blowing a kiss to his family. As for his co-conspirator Deshaun, he pleaded no contest to the charge of unlawfully driving away in an automobile and received a 3 to 10-year sentence in state prison, a sentence that shocked the victim's family. His rambling apology did nothing to ease their pain. Deshaun walked away thinking he'd gotten a slap on the wrist. However, the prosecution had more up their sleeves. A few months later, Deshaun was in a Muskegon County courtroom for a probable cause hearing for felony murder. The prosecution argued that Deshaun's choice to steal the car had led to Jacob's murder and that he was just as responsible. Deshaun was upset. He swore at one of the witnesses on the stand, calling him a liar. Officers immediately bundled him out of the court. Minutes later, Deshaun was brought back in to listen to the judge's ruling. The judge agreed that there was enough probable cause to proceed with a murder trial. Deshaun abruptly stood up and walked forward. The officers immediately returned him to his seat, but Deshaun turned to the victim's family and swore at them. He later sat and went quiet but kept glaring at them. One of the family members yelled at him, and Deshaun lost it.
Bro, stop looking at me, bro. Turn around. Bro, I'm not playing. Look at me.
He continued to swear as court officers led him out of the courtroom. A member of the audience made sure to get the last dig in. Deshaun was later found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Back on June 23, 2013, in Nashville, Brandon Banks was involved in inappropriate behavior with a 21-year-old female student who was unconscious at the time. The jury, which plays a crucial role in the legal system, decided after carefully considering and understanding all the case details.
All right, please be seated. Mr. Foreperson, have you reached the verdict?
Yes, sir.
Would you please stand and read your verdict? As to count one, we found the defendant not guilty. As to count two, we found the defendant not guilty. As to count three, aggravated, we found the defendant guilty. As to count four, we found the defendant not guilty. As to count five, we found the defendant not guilty. As to count six, aggravated battery, we found the defendant guilty. And as to count seven, we found the defendant not guilty. And is that your considered verdict? Yes, sir, it is. All right, you may be seated. I'm going to ask each of you, with respect to counts 3 and count 7, if that is your considered verdict. Juror number 1, is that your considered? 3 and 6. Thank you. Juror number 1, is that your considered verdict? Yes. Juror number 2, is that your considered verdict? Juror number 3, is that your considered verdict? Yes, sir. Juror number 4, is that your considered verdict? Juror number 5, is that your considered verdict? Yes, sir. And juror number 7, is that your considered verdict? Yes. Juror number 14, is that your considered verdict? Yes, sir. Juror number 13, is that your considered verdict? Juror number 12, is that your considered verdict? Juror number 10, is that your considered verdict? And juror number 8, is that your considered verdict? All right, thank you all very, very much. I do want to speak with you very briefly. Anything from either side? All right. Thank you. You are excused. I do want to speak with you very briefly. Thank you so very much.
All rise.
In court, one of the toughest jobs is determining the suspect's fate, and that's the judge's responsibility. In this instance, the judge carried out this duty.
Thank you both, and thank all of you who have testified, as well as I want to give my appreciation for the victim's impact statement. Well, as you all know, I've sat through 4 trials. I've lived through this experience for the last 4+ years now. And I'm very familiar with all of the facts and have a fairly good perception of all of the individuals involved in this matter. As I've stated before, the defendants in this particular case are not your typical defendants. Most defendants who come before me have a different kind of background, have prior criminal records, and oftentimes by the time they get to sentencing, not only do they have prior records, they have the records that they have accumulated between the time that they were charged with the original offense and they're being sentenced for that offense. In this case, of course, Mr. Banks just has the offenses that he was charged with and convicted of. There's no prior record. I have looked at the enhancement and mitigating factors in this case, as I always do. And I try to look at the entire individual and listen to those who support him, as well as those who are not in support of him or her, as the case may be. So I don't think there's much more that I need to say about it. I believe that the proper sentence is 15 years for count 3, 8 years for count 6, and he will have to deal with offender registry matter the rest of his life. That's the judgment of the court. And that will be concurrent, of course.
All right.
On the morning of November 20th, 2016, Detective Benjamin Marconi, a 20-year veteran of the San Antonio Police Department, was sitting in his patrol car in front of police headquarters, checking the information of a driver he had pulled over. Suddenly, a black car pulled up behind his cruiser, and a man got out. He ran to the officer's window with a gun, opened fire, and then quickly fled the scene. Emergency calls went out, and officers rushed to the scene. Unfortunately, it was too late for Detective Benjamin, who died at the hospital. The police released images of the suspect's car and footage of the same man at police headquarters just hours before the shooting. A massive search ensued, and the police did everything they could to catch the killer. By the next day, they had identified the shooter as 31-year-old Otis McCain. While the police searched for him, Otis went to the Bexar County Courthouse to get married. Eventually, the police found him and kept a close watch, waiting for the right moment to make an arrest. 30 hours after the shooting, a SWAT team moved in on Otis as he drove along the interstate in a white sedan. He was arrested without incident. As shocking as his actions were after the cold and calculated murder, everyone was puzzled about why he targeted the detective. Otis claimed he was angry with the court system for not allowing him to see his son during a custody battle. However, the officers who brought him in reported that Otis had told them a completely different story.
Statements, which was, I'm glad that I shot him. You can't judge me. Says I felt good to do what I did. And I finally got somebody to listen.
I'm doing okay besides the fact that people think I killed the police officer.
He claimed someone was impersonating him and even portrayed himself as a victim.
I've been falsely accused, or they accused me of a situation that I refuse to talk about.
Otis was charged with capital murder and faced the death penalty. After several delays, his trial finally began. Witness after witness took the stand, describing the shooting in detail.
It's something, but whenever I saw him, he went like that, and he kept going back to the car.
Tell the jury why you picked picture number 3 and signed and dated it.
Because I was 80% sure that was the gentleman that I saw running towards the patrol vehicle.
We had tried to do something quickly, so I had turned his head to the side to pour the blood out of his mouth to try and help establish an airway.
I didn't know who it was, but it's just, I know it's one of us.
What? Once you saw who it was, what did you then do?
I ran out and I started telling everybody because nobody knew who he was.
One witness, a crime scene technician, presented evidence from the horrific scene. 2 videos were shown in the courtroom. One video captured the moment Otis shot the detective, and it was so brutal that a juror threw up on the spot. In the other video, Otis admitted to the shooting during an interrogation.
I apologize. That was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life.
As he watched the video, Otis wiped tears from his face, one of the few times he showed emotion in the courtroom. The defense spent only 25 minutes making their case, the same amount of time the jury took to return with a guilty verdict. At first, Otis seemed indifferent, but soon he began unbuttoning his shirt. Once the jury left the courtroom, Otis sat down and placed his head in his hands. When the bailiff approached to lead him out, Otis stood up and attacked the bailiff with his elbow. 3 officers quickly tackled him to the ground, and several more rushed to assist. There's no telling what else happened behind those doors, but Otis was on his best behavior at his sentencing the following week. Detective Benjamin's daughter addressed her father's killer for the first time.
I always thought of myself as a strong person, but since then, it feels like I have to be stronger because he was such a strong person, and I want that to stay alive.
Otis stared ahead, possibly recalling his one prayer.
I can pray for him, but I don't think I do.
Unfortunately, for Otis, that was exactly what he received. He was sentenced to death. Otis kept his composure this time and was led out of the courtroom without incident. After deliberating for 3 hours and 26 minutes, a jury composed of 7 women and 5 men reached a guilty verdict in the trial of 35-year-old Veron Primus of Vermont for the November 2015 killing of 33-year-old real estate agent Charlene Greaves. The prosecution, led by Kareem Nelson, presented the case.
Another girl in the United States.
Yeah.
He said that?
I don't know why. I would like to know the reason why. But I feel good because he's found guilty.
The very day Charlene she was threatened in the morning by people.
But just one thing, I still don't know why. Still don't know why.
The police found his jean pants full of.
He used to threaten me a lot. Like when we got into like arguments and things, he would threaten me with knives. I need to find out the reason why. And I need justice for my daughter. That's why I come here.
An assistant director of public prosecution, along with Crown Counsel's Kaylee Anthony and Jean Bala, presented a case where one of Primus's adult female relatives, with whom he had a consensual relationship, testified that he confessed to killing Greaves. Primus was also wanted in New York, as he had been indicted in June 2016 for the 2006 killing of 16-year-old Chanel Petro Nixon. In October 2019, Primus was imprisoned in St. Vincent for 16 months for escaping lawful custody. Then, in December 2020, he was imprisoned again for 24 months for escaping lawful custody a second time, as well as for 3 months for damaging a sheet of plywood.
And they never did anything about getting a DNA.
And I will be here on the 24th of September.
For the sentence?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, because they accept it because the judge was biased.
Ever screamed for help during the 3.5 months?
And if I have to do it again, I will do it all over again.
At Her Majesty's prisons in Kingstown, from which he escaped, Primus has also served prison sentences in New York for first-degree criminal contempt and third-degree burglary. Greaves' secretary, Ronella Bailey, discovered her body in Greaves' office at Bijou Real Estate in the Highway Trading Building in Arnos Vale around 9 a.m. on November 13, 2015. The body was found less than 12 hours after a woman, speaking quietly, called the police general line, reporting a break-in at her office in the building. The woman then began to scream, and the call abruptly ended. Detectives responded but found no signs of forced entry. After questioning people in the area, conducting further investigation, and pursuing a lead, they returned to the building but ultimately left without any breakthroughs. Primus, who was deported from the U.S. in June 2015, did not come to the attention of the police until April 2016.
To have sex, she's so terrified with him. You be so terrified with someone and go and continue relationship with him.
And when you heard the verdict, how did you feel?
Feel happy, feel glad.
There's a chance.
Ask all I didn't know. I was not allowed to ask any question about that.
Able to sleep at night when it was dark?
Sometimes.
Not always?
Not always. That he's the one that did the actual stabbing. He's the one that used the knife.
At that time, detectives were investigating a report by Vermont resident Moana Hadaway, then 24 years old, that Primus had kept her against her will in his home in Vermont from January 1st to April 15th, 2016. Finally, this serial offender was brought to justice and sentenced to 34 years in prison. Back on April 1st, 2012, in Washtenaw County, Harvey Wintz subjected a boy to torture. During the trial, things didn't go well for him. His testimony was crucial in deciding the outcome of the case.
I just want to say, throughout this year, Your Honor, spiritually, I became a better man. At first, when I came here, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should give up or if I should keep on struggling through this process. I just want to say, through the likeness and guidance of God, I was able just to stand strong and still say that I'm a man. I took care of my since they was kids. I never heard the prosecutor saying that I kid. He's saying that this is an example to set on an innocent man, even though I got found guilty by a jury. But that don't mean I did it. They could have found me guilty of them pictures. They could have found me guilty or just, I don't know, but it wouldn't, my testimony is real. I may have said some things that wasn't accurate in the interrogation room, but I ain't mean to lie. I meant to tell the truth. When he came and asked me, did I want to ask questions, my flesh told me don't go do it, because I know what he wanted. He didn't see me from where I'm from. He just wanted me to come before he could lock me up. But my heart told me to go because I ain't got nothing to hide. You know, and I'm just asking you just to give me leniency and mercy, because I'm not a bad man. I'm a good person. I mean, I understand I have a criminal record of home invasion, but that was just one time. After I did that, after my mom set me straight, I got 2 jobs. I went to school. I wasn't doing nothing bad. I never did anything to hurt nobody. I take responsibility of leaving him. They'll hunt me every day. But the fact to say that, why would I do that? I had no reason to. But the thing I'm just asking you, Your Honor, is just for my family, for they won't leave her, even though 22 years is a lot. Well, under, I don't know how this, 30 years is too much for somebody that ain't a bad person. When I've been in jail a whole year, you can't ask one officer, have I had a problem with him? I haven't, even though I came here on something that wasn't true through a detective. But I'm not a disrespectful man. I respect my elders. I respect people. And I just pray and ask God that He lead you the leniency and the grace to give me something that I can stand. And I love my family. And I want to let my family know. Stay strong, because I'm going to stay strong. But I don't know how long it's going to last. I love y'all. And to Julian, I'm sorry that I left you alone. If he's not here, spiritually, I know he can feel me. If you walk through this door right now and to tell you that I didn't do this to him, that I only left him alone, then what would happen? Will I still get sentenced? And first degree, after they come out of the kid's mouth for some couple of years later on, when he tell the truth, then what can Mr. Hallam say? Can he say this because I got found guilty by 12 people that don't even know me? They don't know nothing about me. They only knew what the tape said. They don't know me. They don't know the boy that cries inside the man. want to say, just have mercy and grace on me. Lindsay O'Brien.
At times, criminals may try to convince others of their innocence by shouting and yelling, hoping to distract from their actions and avoid responsibility for their crimes.
Prosecutor, what you want to prosecute me for, man? I'm a good man. I ain't never do nothing, man. I ain't do shit to that man. What y'all prosecute me for, man? What y'all prosecute me for? What I do? I ain't do nothing. No, this ain't right. This is not right, man. This ain't right. Y'all got me for myself.
I'm the pastor. Calm down. Calm down. Listen, this I'm your pastor. Calm down. I'm your pastor. Calm down. I'm your pastor. Calm down. Calm down. Okay, this isn't gonna help now. Okay. Y'all calm down. Have a seat. It's not gonna help. Sit down and you He's still having fights. Okay.
The judge, who was fully aware of all the facts of the case, delivered a fair and appropriate sentence.
As I was saying, I was imposing sentence on count 2, first degree. It is the sentence of this court that you serve 120 months to 15 years with Michigan Department of Corrections credit for 393 days, concurrent with count 1. As to count 3, assaulting, resisting, obstructing